Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Before we knew about COVID-19, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue received classified briefings about the virus. And what did they do next? They downplayed the risks, then invested in body bags. 10 months later, over 10,000 Georgians dead. Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, dead wrong.
So that's what Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue did with the information that they had about COVID and its, extreme infectiousness. They bought body bags, and it's a good thing they invested in body bags. It's a good thing they did because California just ordered 5,000 of them and about 60 refrigerated trucks. You know, yesterday we had 3,656 people die of COVID. That is more than 9/11. Almost 4,000 dead Americans in a 24-hour period yesterday. And lo and behold, we find out that that is what the Trump administration was trying to do all along. The Trump administration, I mean, we sort of had circumstantial evidence by believing our own eyes that he was doing super spreader events across this country, inviting people to come and not wear masks and be packed into, indoor spaces over and over and over and over and over again. The whole Sturgis motorcycle rally with these old bikers being allowed into bars without masks, and all of this encouragement of going maskless and telling people just go out and do your thing. It was all so that they could develop herd immunity in this country, something that is akin to mass murder. That's what herd immunity is, and we know that because you have infectious disease experts like Dr. Hazeltine who told us this months ago.
I'm extremely concerned that the president is being advised by people who speak of herd immunity. Herd immunity is another word for mass murder. That is exactly what it is. If you allow this virus to spread, as they are advocating, we are looking at 2 to 6 million Americans dead, not just this year, but every year. The reason for that is that there is no such thing as herd immunity. These viruses, coronaviruses, come back year after year and infect the very same people. We know that from very detailed studies of the viruses, their cousins, the coronaviruses that cause colds. Every year they come back and infect the same people, the same virus. This is an unmitigated disaster for our country to have people at the highest levels of our government countermanding our best public health officials. We know this epidemic can be put under control. Other countries have done it. We are doing the opposite.
Exactly, and that's an older clip, okay? That's one of those that you save so that when it's all over, you can, look back and see who committed mass murder. Obviously, the Trump administration, they are involved in mass murder. They do have sheeple. They do have sheeple in their death cult who are willing to go to the slaughterhouse for them. But the most amazing thing happened yesterday. The House has a subcommittee headed by Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. It is a coronavirus subcommittee to look at, monitor, and get information on the coronavirus crisis ongoing. And yesterday, the Clyburn subcommittee in the House was able to get emails. It's always emails. And the emails came from the people that Donald Trump inserted into Health and Human Services. Now, you got to remember that back in the day when this was first starting and Donald Trump didn't want the numbers out there, didn't want testing because testing would actually show who had COVID so that they could isolate for a couple of weeks so that they could get tested on the back end and be free of COVID when they re-entered our society, right? He didn't want the testing. He turned down testing from the World Health Organization when our test failed, on and on it goes, right? So what did Donald Trump do? He inserted some part-time professor from Canada and Dr. Scott Atlas, who he saw on the TV on the Fox News, who was advocating, now we know for him, for herd immunity, who was saying, just go about your business, just get the damn disease, get it over with, whatever, or saying that the disease didn't even exist. It was a hoax so that people would unwittingly expose themselves, get sick and die, or get sick and have long haul symptoms, or get sick and recover. Those were the three options, but they weren't told that those were the options for them. They were told it wasn't real. They were told it would go away. They were told hydroxychloroquine. They were told UV light. They were told drink bleach. They were told a whole host of things that were all false and fake. But Donald Trump saw Scott Atlas on the TV on that news station, and he decided that he would hire him, and he would ask around for somebody who could, make the case for herd immunity on the sly. And he found this part-time professor from Canada named Dr. Paul Alexander, and installed him at Health and Human Services. This advisor, Paul Alexander, strategized with other top officials at HHS. And one of the things they came up with early on was to take the CDC out of the numbers game. Remember that? When cases were supposed to be reported to the Center for Disease Control, he didn't like that. They were too transparent. So he said, you know what? We're cutting CDC out, and we're now going to have Health and Human Services take the numbers and disperse them. Well, that's because he put cronies into HHS, and the numbers that we've been getting, especially here in Florida, have big gaps in them. Big gaps, like no reporting for days on end, no reporting at all. And then information dumps, like from Ron DeSantis, Ron death sentence, our governor here, big data dumps from 2 months ago in response to Freedom of Information Act lawsuits. Oh, I mean, it's a mess. So you've got these pro-death people, these people that just actually wrote, but what we have now are emails that say and let me tell you something about these emails. This man, Paul Alexander, cannot spell. He can't make a sentence. He doesn't even understand the words he uses. It's so unbelievable. He writes things like on July 3rd, so the bottom line is, if it is more infectiousness, what the hell? If it's more infectiousness now, the issue is, who cares? If it is causing more cases in young, my word is, who cares? As long as we make sensible decisions and protect the elderly, ELDERELY, the elderly, and nursing homes, we must go on with life. ... Who cares? The next day, he writes another email, quote, there is no other way. We need to establish herd, and it only comes about allowing the non-high risk groups expose themselves to the virus, period. In all caps, period. So that's why we have 4,000 dead in a 24-hour period in this country. You know, the next few months are going to be so freaking traumatic that by the time some people finally get this vaccine, they're going to need to have their memories wiped out so that they can have the last few months erased. I'm telling you, we're all going to need to eat mushrooms and have some, psychedelic experience to wipe this away.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
We now know a former top Trump appointee repeatedly urged other top health officials to adopt a herd immunity strategy. That would mean intentionally allowing millions to be sickened by COVID. Here's a full screen quote. Put it up. Infants, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged with no conditions, etc., have zero to little risk. So we use them to develop herd immunity. We want them infected. Really? Because none of them died, right? They didn't get sick in a horrible way. There are no long-lasting, long-haul effects just all over this country in ways we're just barely starting to understand. But here's the here's the more troubling aspect. If that's what they wanted, is that the reason behind what they did? Ignoring the reality of the pandemic, telling you it wasn't real, mocking masks, telling people to come together, holding the rallies.
Yes.
It's the stuff of a horror film.
It is.
Did Trump and co. really sabotage safety because they wanted people sick? It's not me saying it, it's one of theirs. Boy, it sure does explain the reaction that Trump had. Do you remember the shockingly cold reaction he had to the new death toll at the time? Remember this?
1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is.
You know, at the time, I was like, he's going to correct that, right? Why would he? Why? He didn't want to have empathy. He wasn't just incompetent.
Right.
He was okay with letting people die in some kind of Darwinian perversion. It is what it is, meaning it's part of a means to an end. People die. Others won't. Not going to be me.
Unfreaking believable. It was a death cult. It is a death cult. And he's still the head of the cult. There is no... So that was when 1,000 people a day were dying. And we were all freaked out. 1,000 people a day are dying of this thing? 1,000 people a day are dying of this thing? Now we have 3,000, almost 4,000 people a day dying of this thing. In 24 hours, we lose 4,000 Americans. Herd immunity, the herd is in the slaughterhouse. And Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, you know what they do? They invest in body bags. That's what they do. This is unbelievable. This is just, so they were intentionally trying to kill us. They were and they are intentionally trying to infect us and kill as many people as possible in order to achieve their desired herd immunity. You know, his intentions were always depraved. His intentions were always evil. It was always about him. But thank God he's incompetent, or we would have had 1.5 million, 2 million people dead by now. But the doctors won't allow it. The pharmaceutical companies are working on it. The vaccine makers were working on it. I mean, all these people were working. We're going to save lives, and he's inundating the hospitals, inundating them, a steady flow. Yesterday alone, 113,000 people hospitalized just with this. There's like no room for people who have a stroke or a heart attack or break a bone. There's just no room anymore. It's 113,000 people in the hospital for COVID. ICU beds all taken up with COVID. 17 million people today we hit. 17 million infections in this country. 17 million infections. But they're the pro-life people, right? Mike Pence standing there. We're the most pro-life administration.
Allow me to give you the opportunity to thank the most pro-life president in American history. In this administration, it's always been about life. And that's been evident in the last year as our nation has passed through this challenging time of a global pandemic. An administration that has counted the lives of every one of our citizens precious and important.
Life is winning is the banner behind him. He talks about the pandemic, doesn't talk about the lives lost. How is life winning when we've lost more lives to this medical crisis than at any other point in modern history?
Pro-life, everybody. The pro-life administration. That's who they are, the pro-life. Let me tell you something about the young people, ages 25 to 44. Because of COVID, young adults are dying at rates higher than back when we were all doing Quaaludes and cocaine and getting drunk on freaking Zima and then driving home. More young people are dying of this disease than when we were actually abusing Quaaludes, cocaine, drinking Zima on top of all of it, getting in our cars, and driving home. Who cares, he says. Who cares? And you know what? In these Clyburn memos, not only are these emails in the memos that James Clyburn was able to get delivered to him, okay? And not only do they say there's no other way, we have to establish herd immunity. And this doctor spells herd immunity, herd, H-E-A-R-D. Can't spell elderly, can't spell infectious, can't make a sentence, spells herd, H-E-A-R-D, and then says infants, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged, have zero to little risk. So we use them. We use them to develop herd. We want them infected. 3 weeks later, he writes, it may be that it will be best if we open up and flood the zone and let kids and young folk get infected as a strategy to get natural immunity, natural exposure. Our kids, I always remember, I said to you, I always thought the bottom line for everybody was, the children. They love the children, right? No, they love the fetus. They have this fetish for a fetus. I don't know what it is. They just fetishize it. And once you're born, once you get sick, once you're infected, once you need medical care, once you need food, once you need Infamil, you're on your own. We don't love you anymore. In fact, who cares? Who cares if you die? This is unbelievable because we always had a case, but it was based on circumstantial evidence, which is admissible in a court of law, and that is why I kept saying he's committing depraved heart second-degree murder and needs to be prosecuted for it. But now we actually have emails. We're past circumstantial evidence. We're into a real investigation now, a real one, and real evidence is being produced. Reliable, black and white print.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. This is the memo. For those of you who you can see that on the screen, here it is. This is the memo that's come out today. And I just want to read a little bit of it, which is some of the most, frightening things I've ever read. And both the Rachel Maddow show and this show, we've been talking about the sort of the evidence, right, that there's been a herd immunity strategy, but it was circumstantial until now. Here it is. There is no other way, as I read before. We need to establish herd. It only comes about allowing non-high-risk groups to expose themselves to the virus, period. We continue the public health message of proper hygiene, hand washing, protecting elderly at your homes and nursing care facilities, social distancing, and so on. But we go on and let our societies open up fully now. That's in all caps. If the hospitalizations occur in young and they get severe illness, then that's a different story. And we will then have a huge mess on our hands and real nightmare. But that's not the case as of now. One more bit. Infants, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged with no conditions, etc., have zero to little risk. So we use them. We use them to develop herd. We want them infected. We want them infected and recovered with antibodies. Dr. Jha, that's some of the scariest stuff I've ever read. That apparently was the official policy, at least the policy and memos of our government. Your response?
Well, Joy, thank you for having me on. It's pretty stunning, and it makes me think of a few things. First of all, there are a group of people, Scott Atlas, certainly one of them, the White House advisor, but others who have advocated this strategy of kind of let it rip and get lots of people infected. By most calculations, we would have potentially many, many times the number of people dead as we already have right now. So this seemed to be what they were doing. And they were having this debate when no serious person in public health actually thought this was a reasonable strategy. It is stunning to see it actually written down and argued in this way. But it confirms a lot of suspicions that many of us have had.
So many of us had it. Dr. Hazeltine knew it. Dr. Fauci knew it. Dr. Fauci was a diplomat, and because he has worked for 6 presidents, so he understands that he would have lost any ability to help out in this pandemic scenario. As an infectious disease expert, okay, he would have lost all ability. But in these memos, they're actually criticizing tell him to shut up. Tell Dr. Fauci to stop talking. Tell Dr. Fauci he can't go on the television anymore. He's confusing people. He's trying to make them think that they will die from that. You know, I mean, it is so bizarre. It is so ugly. And still to this day, they're saying they're the pro-life administration, the most pro-life administration in the history of administration. What is wrong with people? They hate you. They hate you. They don't want to take care of you. They don't believe in you. They're a death cult. They've been a death cult. We knew they were a death cult. You could see by watching Fox News the advice they were giving. Go out and die. Just go out and get it. Just go out. And, you know, the deaths of despair. Deaths of despair because people are going to be, you know, kept home. Well, they wouldn't be in despair if the PPP money would have really gone to small restaurants instead of big chains. If the PPP would have gone to bar owners instead of big corporate businesses, you know, I mean, if it wouldn't have gone to the Jared Kushners of the world and the Ivanka Trumps of the world, but it would have gone to support small business in a meaningful way. If real money could have gotten out the door, just like they do in every single civilized country on this planet. You have countries that provide 87% of wages when something like this happens, 85% of wages. Sweden, 90% of wages. And Sweden tried this herd immunity idea, and it failed so miserably early on that they reversed course, okay? But honestly, this is so unbelievable. It'll just go away, and it's all bullcrap, and it's a hoax. People believe that there was election fraud when there is no evidence at all ever presented in 59 court cases. That's what they're 1 in 59. 59 court cases, 0 evidence was produced to substantiate, back up, or indicate that they had a case on merits, on evidence, on anything. Nothing was presented, and people believe in election fraud. But you got 17 million infected Americans. 2,000 so far today have died. Yesterday, almost 4,000 people have died. 113,000 people were in the hospital as of yesterday. And new infections are being diagnosed at a rate of about 250,000 new infections every single day. And people still think that this particular infectious disease is a damn hoax. Go figure. I mean, you got to have some major propaganda being thrown at people who are so unable to think their way out of a paper bag that they will listen to anybody that steps up to the microphone because they're desperate. Listen, we always suspected, we always knew. The thing that always irritated me about them was that in the middle of all this death, they were saying, we're the most pro-life people, pro-life. And, we need to, Amy Coney Barrett, she loves the fetus. This is our pick because we're pro-life. Meanwhile, you have Bill Barr, who has a conveyor belt of executions going on over there. Over here, you got people getting infected at a rate of 250,000 Americans, 250,000 Americans getting this virus every single day, and 113,000 people currently in the hospital fighting for their lives, and almost 4,000 people dying a day, which is, it's almost like having two 9/11s every single day, and it ain't over. And Dr. Redfield was telling you it ain't over. I mean, listen, I thought this guy was playing both sides of the fence too. I mean, these people were just so bizarre in what they were saying publicly and privately. It was insane. But he's finally had his come to Jesus moment and got on the TV last week and said these next 3 months are going to be incredibly traumatic.
Probably for the next 60 to 90 days, we're going to have more deaths per day than we had in 9/11 or we had in Pearl Harbor. And the reality is the vaccine approval this week's not going to really impact that.
It's not going to impact that. People are going to die in record numbers. Right now we have 1,905 people who have died today, and it isn't even 4 p.m. in the East, okay? It's 1 o'clock in the West. And you got 2,000 people dead today. These are sociopaths, okay? The president of the United States, his son-in-law, who said, "Oh, New York's losing 32,000 people." Well, that's their problem. Those stockpiles, they're federal. They belong to us. They don't belong to the state. New York can't have those ventilators. New York can't have the PPE. New York. They are sociopaths. They need to stand before the court. They have to be prosecuted, all of them. Ivanka also, she keeps weighing in because now she's an infectious disease expert too. Get the money out the door. Save some freaking lives. No, he's AWOL, this president. He's still arguing that he won an election he has clearly lost almost 6 weeks ago.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The two worst presidents of the last 100 years are the last two Republican presidents, the current one, Donald Trump, and George W. Bush, which speaks volumes about the modern Republican Party. And also, when you compare Trump and Bush killed hundreds of thousands of people abroad, brown and black people in faraway countries that we don't care about. Donald Trump killed hundreds of thousands of people or presided over the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, preventable death, here at home in the United States of America. And that, for me, you talk about morally abominable. It's sociopathic. You mentioned earlier in the show the 4 words that will be the epitaph is "we want more infections, we want more infected." What about "who cares" in those emails? That jumped out at me. This guy Paul Alexander writes, if we have more cases, more people infected, more positive tests, who cares? And you take "who cares," you add it to Donald Trump's "it is what it is," you add it to Jared Kushner's "that's their problem" when people in New York are dying. This is sociopathic. This is not just morally abominable. Yeah. And I think people should be held to account. I think they should be prosecuted. The people behind these preventable deaths should be prosecuted when they leave office on January 20th.
Absolutely. If this isn't a crime against humanity, I don't know what is. If presiding over preventable deaths and deciding that you would rather see people die because you don't want to lift a finger, and you know that your actions, the ones that you are taking or not taking, are going to cause the death of another, just one person, that is second-degree murder. This is you're talking over 310,000 dead people. They're saying we'll see about 500,000 dead people by the time this is over. Who in the world gets away with kill? He said, I could kill somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, not lose any support over it. These people are like in the tank for me. But what about the decent people in this country? Are we going to allow a man to preside over the death of 500,000 people in this country? And God only knows what the long haul effects of this virus are, the blood clots and the cloudiness in the lungs, the lung damage. Who knows? We don't know. It's new, right? It's a novel coronavirus. So really, are we willing to say, and you got people in who are about to take power. Nah, let's turn the page. This is not a Bob Seger song, everybody. Okay? It ain't a turn the page moment. This is a death cult, and it has to be prosecuted as such. This is a sociopath who managed to get control of the United States government. The most powerful person on the planet is a sociopathic murderer. And by the way, if you were wondering, did they know that it was causing deaths in not just the senior community, but was it also causing a disproportional amount of death going on in minority communities? The answer is yes. On May 30th, 2020, Dr. Paul Alexander told his colleagues at Health and Human Services and anybody he could get to listen to him in the White House to suppress the Centers for Disease Control's hospitalization data showing about the risk posed by the virus to minority communities. He wrote, quote, the man cannot write a sentence. His spelling is atrocious. I don't even know how this person even managed to get a resume together to even get this job. But he wrote, if the communication is left with just the statement that minoring groups, he meant minority, minoring groups are at higher risk than on its face, this is very accurate. However, in this election, that is the kind of statement coming from the Centers for Disease Control that the media and Democrat antagonists will use against the president. So what he's saying is, suppress the data that clearly shows that minority communities were hit harder than non-minority communities in this, hospitalization data that's coming out of CDC. Suppress it. Suppress the information. Because we have an election. This was back in May. Because we have an election. You got a guy at Health and Human Services who's thinking about an election? Health and Human Services is thinking about Trump's re-election in May. This election cycle, that's the kind of statement coming from CDC that the media and Democrat antagonists will use against the president. And then he says, we need good stories to tout, as we know, of elderly with serious conditions who get it and survive. This is key to tell. Manipulating the data, suppressing the data, misleading the American people, disinforming the American people, misinforming the American people on purpose because they wanted to ignore who was dying. They didn't think the elderly's lives were worth very much anyway, nor do they think minority communities are worth saving either. And so they said, suppress the Center for Disease Control's numbers. And that happened. That happened. All of a sudden, the reporting went not to the CDC, but to Health and Human Services, so they could suppress information. But we had people like Rebecca Jones in Florida who had a COVID dashboard. We have people like at Johns Hopkins University that have a COVID dashboard. You have the COVID Tracking Project that has a COVID dashboard. And we could see what was really going on, no matter how hard they tried to suppress data, no matter how they lied to the American people. We knew they were lying. But now you got them admitting that they were proactively, affirmatively allowing people to die. If that's not prosecutable, people, then nothing in this country is. And there is no such thing. And I know that we all know that the justice system is tiered. Okay? Politicians get the best treatment by the courts, humanly, purchasable. Rich people, middle class who can afford a lawyer if they need one, and then everybody else who can't. We have people in this country that plead guilty to things they didn't do. Things they didn't do. The COVID nightmare before Christmas, that's where we are. I mean, he has turned this country into a slaughterhouse, into a freaking butcher shop. And they're ordering body bags in California. It's so unbelievable. I mean, if they, why didn't they just say, hey, you want to try for herd immunity? Everybody ride with the bikers when they go to Sturgis and go hang out at the bars with them. I will too. But to lie to us in this way, and these Fox News people, the Laura Ingrams, the Tucker Carlson actually had the other day on his show a little photograph of a gingerbread man saying, death is inevitable in life, so why be afraid of it? A Christmas message from Tucker Carlson. I swear to God, a gingerbread man, and then he said, death is inevitable, so just go for it. Merry freaking Christmas, everybody. But, oh no, at least they say Merry Christmas, right? Right, Trumpansies? Well, they're pro-life. No, they're pro-death. They love the fetus. They hate the woman. The woman could die. And if the fetus is born and it needs, neonatal care, oh, well, that depends upon your ability to pay now, doesn't it? Oh, your baby needs diapers and Infamil? Well, that depends on your ability to pay. Tell your baby to pull himself up by his booty straps. I mean, this is sick and twisted, and it's finally exposed as the frightening, sociopathic death cult that we knew it was. There was no other explanation for this man telling the American people that it would magically disappear when there were only 15 people. 15 people in this country had COVID, and he could have done something, and he's been AWOL ever since. And he doesn't do his job. He's done nothing since the election. I mean nothing except go golfing. He has done zero except scream and yell and tweet about an election that he clearly lost in a free and fair election. But he's a sociopath. He is a disturbed individual, and so he needs to say, I didn't lose. I didn't. I was robbed. Someone took it from me in a bad way. It was bad. And exact revenge on his successor.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
He used to privately accept the reality that he lost the election, but now, no. He's now starting to believe his own lies, that the election was stolen. And this comes while some thought this talk of a rigged election was, just talk, right? It was all about making money. Go get a radio show, make a lot of money because you never had as much as you said you had. It would stay relevant, be a kingmaker. That's what it was all about. But after 39 days and roughly 1,100 tweets, mostly false claims about the election, and this.
The election was rigged.
So many votes were stolen. We won the election easily.
He now believes that. So much so that Trump has told some advisors that he may not leave the White House on Inauguration Day. Literally saying such a thing, putting words to the sentiment. And one advisor telling CNN, quote, he's throwing an effing temper tantrum. He's going to leave. He's just lashing out. Okay. That description is the behavior of a person not right in the mind. Let's just say it is like it is. Temper tantrums, lashing out, talking about not leaving the White House. Trump is not 4, right? He's 74. And despite his increasingly deranged delusions, he still has the power to instill cowering and fear and sycophancy in others.
And it's leading to violence, okay? We have the first case of somebody being charged with getting involved in what they perceive to be election fraud in Houston and hiring ex-captains of the police force, literally hiring 20 investigators, because this man who did it, this man who is a sycophant of Donald Trump's, happens to be a very, very rich man. And this man, who is a very, very rich man, Dr. Stephen Hotza, actually paid $266,400 to a former captain of the Houston police force who was fired from the Houston police force in 2003 when he rounded up 300 people and arrested them in what he called a crackdown on illegal street racing. But the people he arrested had nothing to do with street racing, and all charges against all of them were dropped. And Mr. Aguirre, the former captain of the police force, was tried on 5 counts of official oppression. Well, this Dr. Hotz guy, who's got all kinds of money and is a Trump sycophant, decided that he would start an organization called the Liberty Center for God and Country, a non-profit organization. And through that nonprofit, he paid this fired, disgraced police captain $266,400 to go find the missing forged ballots. Oh no, I'm not kidding. This man told this ex-police force captain that approximately 750,000 fraudulent mail-in ballots were in the truck of an AC repairman. This air conditioning repairman was the mastermind of a giant voter fraud scheme where Hispanic children were recruited to sign ballots because the children's fingerprints would not appear in any databases. And so this Dr. Stephen Hotza, through his God and Country not-for-profit, paid this disgraced ex-police captain in Houston to investigate. And they staked out this AC repairman. And they decided the ballots were in his truck, the forged ballots, the 750,000 forged ballots. They were all in this man's truck. And that they should go and arrest this man and search his truck. Well, they couldn't really, they asked the active police to arrest this man, but they had absolutely no grounds to arrest this man. None at all. No evidence, no proof of anything illegal, let alone carting around 750,000 forged ballots. So because they couldn't get the regular police to do this, this disgraced former Houston police captain decided that he would cause a car accident with this AC repairman. So he ran into the AC repairman's truck. And when the AC repairman got out of his truck after being rammed by this ex-captain's car, he went to help the ex-captain, not knowing that he was a marked man. And when he went to help this ex-police captain, the ex-police captain put a gun to his head and decided to search his truck, whereupon the ex-police captain found parts and tools to repair air conditioners. That's what was in the air conditioner repairman's truck.
This is the air conditioning repair truck David Lopez Zuniga was driving 2 months ago when he was allegedly bumped in the back by former Houston police captain Mark Aguirre, who then allegedly brandished a gun. Today, Zuniga and his son talked to us.
He tried helping him, and then he took out the gun on him.
This man?
Yes. And now he don't even know. He didn't even know if he was a cop or not.
And you've never seen him before?
No, no.
This week, Aguirre was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Prosecutors say Aguirre thought there were 750,000 fake ballots inside the truck. At the time, Aguirre was a contract investigator with conservative activist Dr. Stephen Holtze, who today said the charges are trumped up.
If they said he had a gun, why did they take his gun away? It's something smells in Denmark, that's all I can say.
Holtze instead spent about an hour laying out his continued unfounded allegations of voter fraud in Harris County. As part of trying to prove voter fraud, he hired about 20 investigators before last November's election, including Aguirre.
Mr. Aguirre was a 25-year police officer. In cases that I've had him work, and know of his work, he's come highly recommended.
Aguirre did not want to talk to us today. Meanwhile, Holtze promises to continue to look into so far unproven fraud allegations. As for Zuniga, he and his family just want to return to what they know, fixing ACs.
Unfreaking believable. So this man hit the truck of the AC repairman who he was tailing for 4 days, okay? On the payroll of this God and country, Dr. Stephen Holtze's organization, pulls a gun after he runs into the truck of an AC repairman, okay? He pulls a gun. The AC repairman gets out of his truck to see if he could help. The ex-disgraced police captain pulls a gun, forces the AC repairman to the ground, puts a knee on his back. According to the affidavit, we signed an affidavit. I got a written affidavit, and if I sign it, I could go to jail. Yeah, there's a written affidavit that says that this disgraced ex-police captain was hired by these freaky people with all this money in Houston, and that this is just like Donald Trump. We sent investigators to Hawaii to look for Barack Obama's birth certificate. You won't believe what we're finding. They found nothing. So here you have dirty politics crossing the line into violent crime. It's a backward thing. I mean, you first allege a crime that didn't occurred, and then you work backwards to prove that it happened by putting a gun to somebody's head. I mean, what the F? This is like the guy that drove from South Carolina to Comet Ping Pong and Pizza because he thought there was a pedophile ring in the basement, but there was no basement.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
U.S. intelligence officials are now investigating a suspected Russian-linked hack targeting multiple federal agencies, including
Homeland Security, the State Department, and the National Institutes of Health. That's in addition to the Treasury and Commerce Departments.
The intrusion went undetected for months.
Since at least the spring.
And made even worse, these agencies didn't know it was happening. They had to be told by FireEye, which is a private security agency.
FireEye said it believed hackers were able to gain access to numerous public and private organizations around the world by slipping malware into software developed by SolarWinds, an IT management company,
which is widely used across the federal government,
including in the Pentagon and the White House, and is used by most of the Fortune 500 companies.
The Kremlin denied any involvement in the hack. We don't know how large the cyber attack was or what exactly hackers acquired in their breaches.
We have heard nothing from President Trump about this cyber attack.
According to the Wall Street Journal, an expert aware of the scope of the breach calls it a 10 out of 10 in severity and national security exposure.
And now today there is an additional agency, the agency that protects our nuclear arsenal. Yes, the Department of Energy and National Nuclear Security Administration was also part of this massive Russian hack. And Donald Trump says nothing. They put bounties on our soldiers' heads, and Donald Trump says nothing. They hacked into our 2016 election. They hacked into Hillary's emails. They hacked into Podesta's emails, and Donald Trump says nothing. Okay? And now we have this massive hack, and the Department of Homeland Security, their committee in the Senate that oversees the Department of Homeland Security, called the Department of Homeland Security Committee, which is chaired by lunatic fringe Ron Johnson, who is a lunatic from Wisconsin, decides that the best use in the middle of a massive, ongoing hack into our systems and private businesses, okay, across this country, that the best use for his committee is to hear bogus election fraud claims, is to sit there and argue with the Democrats and the Republican Chris Krebs from CISA, the organization that oversees cybersecurity, instead of asking him about a hack, instead of asking him about, this Treasury Department, Commerce Department, National Institutes of Health hack. Now we find the Energy Department, the National Nuclear Security Administration hack, and many, many, many businesses in this country hacked by this novel malware. Okay, I'll explain to you real simple. You know how if you're on the computer, okay, which is what you people call it, the computer, and you have an update, and it'll say, your iPhone will do it too. It'll say, an update is ready to be installed, and you got to be plugged in to the wall, to a charger in order for it to happen, or else it'll postpone it and it'll happen later. That's the update for the system that you're on, whether it's a Dell, whether it's a Microsoft update, whether it's whatever. Okay, whatever you use has to update. This particular hack was into that update. They were able to get into an update for software that is installed on government computers. And when the update, which we all take because we trust Microsoft, or because we trust Apple, or because we trust, Dell, or because we trust whoever, is doing the update, and normally they are trustworthy, they don't put malware into your computer. This particular update was from a software vendor called SolarWinds. Instead of Dell, instead of Microsoft, it's SolarWinds. And the Russians were able to get inside that piece of software. And so when an update was taken by these computers, they had a back door. And they could go walk around and they could look at everything having to do with our government. They were able to, and we know who it was. It was Cozy Bear, which is the Russian hacking outfit that hacked Hillary's emails, that hacked John Podesta's, risotto recipes, right? And the group that's supposed to hold accountable this software company, it's called Einstein, it failed to catch the Russians in the act. It failed. It was novel malware, and they had never seen it before. And now all of a sudden it's everywhere, and it's ongoing, and the President of the United States refuses to A, call it out, B, criticize Russia, C, acknowledge that it happened. And his sycophants in the Senate, the Rand Pauls, the Ron Johnsons, on the Homeland Security Committee that oversees the Department of Homeland Security, decided yesterday that they would, air their personal grievances about who won or who lost the election. And that's what they did.
I can't sit by here and listen to this and say that this is not disinformation, this hearing today. This is getting information we have to take a look at to restore confidence in our election integrity. We're not going to be able to just move on without bringing up these irregularities, examining them, and providing an explanation, and see where there really are problems so we can correct it moving forward. Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that. I mean, you're saying I'm putting out information. Well, one, it had nothing to do with this report.
You lied repeatedly.
I did not.
You lied repeatedly in the press that I was spreading Russian disinformation, and that was an outright lie. And I told you to stop lying, and you continue to do it.
Mr. Chairman, this is not about airing your grievances. I don't know what rabbit hole you're running down.
You talked about Russian disinformation.
Down rabbit holes.
Senator Paul.
This is simply not what we're dealing with. Paul. But, Mr. Chairman, you can't make these false allegations and then dropping it there. That is why this needs to return back to its partisan things. This is This is terrible what you're doing to this committee and all the great work that you talked about.
It is what you have done to this committee.
It is not
falsely
the case.
accusing the chairman of spreading disinformation. Nothing could have been further from the truth, and you're spouting it again, which is why I had to respond. Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman.
Judge Storm.
This is outrageous.
It is outrageous because the problems that America has is not that we had any irregularities in our election. The problem that America has is that Russians have hacked into the Department of Defense, the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, Treasury Department, Department of Commerce, the National Institutes of Health, the Energy Department, and the National Nuclear Security Administration, which is responsible for the safety and well-being of our nuclear weapons. And the committee that is chaired by Senator Ron Johnson is spreading disinformation and misinformation on the television with official use of his committee instead of looking at this hack, which is what the committee is supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be protecting the networks. They're supposed to be creating an investigative board that tracks attacks like this, that learns lessons from attacks like this, that issues public recommendations for attacks like this. He's supposed to be creating standards for third-party vendors like this vendor, SolarWinds, okay? They're supposed to be setting vetting criteria in order to be the software provider to the U.S. government. Oh, my God.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. The government here is still trying to figure out how bad certain agencies were hacked by Russia recently. That's been in the headlines. What can you tell us?
Well, that's right. Experts in cybersecurity say it's probably going to take months, if not years, to figure out what systems were compromised. And then the U.S. may never know exactly what the Russians managed to see or steal. Tom Bossert, who served in both the Bush and Trump administrations, says this in a New York Times op-ed. The logical conclusion is that we must act as if the Russian government has control of all the networks that is penetrated, but it's unclear what the Russians intend to do next.
I mean, Donald Trump will never criticize Vladimir Putin. He will never hold them accountable. They have just hacked us in a massive way. We don't know what they have. We don't know if they still occupy space inside the National Nuclear Security Administration. We don't know if they occupy space or took secrets from the Energy Department, which is controls our nuclear weapons. We don't know what they learned or if they're still inside the National Institutes of Health. We don't know what they learned from the Department of Defense or the State Department or the Department of Homeland Security. And you have these sycophants, these psychos, Rand Paul and Ron Johnson, who are in charge. As Republicans, they have all the committee chairs, right? And Ron Johnson is the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. This has happened, and he is spending his time entertaining fraudulent ballots that are leading people to commit violence in this country. And uber rich people who are also Trump sycophants financing this violence. If you ever wondered what would happen if America got a sociopath as a president, now you know. Now you know. We were compromised again by Russians who hacked again. And we don't have a functioning Senate. We don't have a functioning Homeland Security Committee. We have Ron Johnson. We have Rand Paul. This is what Rand Paul decided to talk about.
The fraud happened. The election in many ways was stolen. And the only way it'll be fixed is by, in the future, reinforcing the laws. And the only last comment I would say on what Mr. Krebs, and he can speak for himself, but I think his job was keeping the foreigners out of the election. It was the most secure election based on security of the internet and technology. but he never has voiced an opinion. He's welcome to today on whether or not dead people voted. I don't think he examined that.
Oh, my God.
Did he examine non-citizens voting?
Oh,
so
my
to say it was
God.
the safest election, sure, I agree with your statement if you're referring to foreign intervention. But if you're saying it's the safest election based on no dead people voted, no non-citizens voted, no people broke the absentee rules, I think that's false. And I think that's what's upset a lot of people on our side, is that they're taking your statement to mean, oh, well, there was no problem in the elections. I don't think you examined any of the problems that we've heard here. So really, you're just referring to something differently is the way I look at it.
Yeah, but what he could have talked to you about, what he could have testified about, okay, was this hack. What he could have testified about was the Russians. What he could have testified about was Apartment 29 or Cozy Bear, okay? What he could have told you was that you need to use your committee to protect and defend the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic, not from imaginary dead people who did not vote. Oh, my God. The University of Kentucky professor and election law expert Josh Douglas said Rand Paul is lying about fraud being a problem. Let me be 100% clear, and he was talking to the local paper, the Courier-Journal, last month. Senator Rand Paul is lying about it. He is lying, and all of these politicians who are claiming massive fraud in mail-in voting are lying because they have zero evidence. It's just patently false. Facts should be the currency of our political discourse, but Senator Paul's wallet is completely empty on that front. There is nothing nefarious about counting every valid ballot that arrives by the legal deadline. In fact, it's called democracy. But you know, because he defends Trump just like McConnell, those people, they show up to vote for Trump and they just vote a straight party ticket. They don't know who their freaking senators are or what a mess they're making out of our homeland security. I believe that if Kentuckians understood that Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell refuse to hold hackers from Russia, the FSB, the intelligence community in Russia, I believe that if they knew that this had happened, they would not want Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell to give Russia a pass on attacking America and getting into the Energy Department or the National Nuclear Security Administration or the Commerce Department, the State Department, the Defense Department. And now Donald Trump, I swear to God, is threatening to veto the National Defense Act, which literally pays for cybersecurity in this here country. He's going to veto it because he screams about this Section 230 of Twitter and Facebook rules, right? So Section 230 says that Twitter and Facebook can't be held liable for their users making false statements or their users getting away with spreading violent imagery or whatever. It's not their fault. They're not a publisher. They're just a platform, an aggregator, right? And that they do best efforts to flag disinformation and misinformation. Now, you realize that if they got rid of Section 230, which is what Donald Trump is threatening to veto, the Defense Act, the defense money, which gives a 3% raise to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and also pays for cybersecurity in this here country, that if Trump actually is threatening to veto it because of 230, that Donald Trump would be the first person to lose his account if 230 was abolished, right? He'd be the first person to be taken off that platform because he spreads more disinformation, more violent imagery, liberate Michigan, right, than any other person on Twitter. And he has the largest reach, not the largest, but one of the largest reaches of people on Twitter. He would lose his account immediately if Section 230 was overturned. So that's just interesting, okay? It's bizarre. And for those of you who ask me how could I be a veteran and want to change the name of bases that are named after the Confederate freaking secessionists, people who literally did not want to be part of these United States of America and seceded from this union? You better check yourself. There's something wrong with you and your thinking, if that's what you could call it. But he's literally threatening to veto the defense bill, which would give a 3% raise to our military, pay for our cybersecurity. Now, why would he not want to pay for cybersecurity? Why would that be? I don't know, as he's on his way out the door.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, we're trying to get to the last $40,000 over here for our free speech TV winter pledge drive. We're doing good. We did really well yesterday and the day before, so I just thought I would interrupt today's planned programming to tell you to keep doing it because it's over tomorrow, right? The winter pledge drive is over tomorrow, and if we reach this goal, we'll get an additional $10,000 from Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a fabulous, watcher of Free Speech TV and somebody that puts his money where my mouth is all the time and gives us these challenges, and we accept them, and when we meet them, he pays off. So this would be great because we have 16 people that work over there in Denver, Colorado to keep this here network on the air. This network is 25 years in the making. It has been broadcasting without influence from corporations or government or political parties, and it depends completely upon you. So all you have to do is dial the phone, 877-378-8669. There it is on your screen, 877-378-8669, and talk to one of the very friendly 16 people that work in Denver, Colorado on Free Speech TV, or you could just visit freespeech.org. No TV, just freespeech.org, and pledge as much as you feel comfortable doing, of course. And if you can't, that's fine too. We get it. We understand. These are really tough times. But there are different things we would send you as a thank you. The Randi Rhodes signed hat, for example, is $150, and I do personally autograph them and send them to you. The Randi Rhodes Show mug for a $75 contribution, and then we have things for $20. We have things for $50. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine. Fine. But if you're watching us on DirecTV 348 or Dish Network 9415, know that there are 16 people that work behind the scenes, including, that does not include any of us. It doesn't include me or Tom or Amy or Stephanie or anybody. We are independent, and we do our thing, and we give our donation is we give them our shows. So that's how we participate. So any way that you can, just thank you. Thank you very much. Victor in Florida.
Hi, Randi. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I love you.
I love you more.
I just wanted to discuss, when you said something earlier in the show, you said something about the Trump administration and them promoting herd immunity, and now they got those written. They got it written in black and white, right?
Yes.
Well, it's funny that you said that today on your show, because I think Ron DeSantis has been doing that exact thing. I think he read those memos.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, look, the Sun Sentinel, which is the Fort Lauderdale newspaper, essentially. You have the Miami Herald in Miami, the Sun Sentinel in Fort Lauderdale, and the Palm Beach Post in Palm Beach County, which sucks. But the Sentinel and the Miami Herald are really good newspapers. And the Sun Sentinel has filed Freedom of Information Act requests to the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, because there are gaps in the reporting where nobody got COVID this day, nobody died this day, big gaps in the reporting. And he's given these press conferences, and they're local, so I don't put them on the air as much as I should, maybe. But he says things like, no matter what happens, we are going to stay fully open. Our bars are going to open. Our bars are going to stay open. Our schools are going to stay. Now, what kind of a lunatic death cult member keeps bars open when you're trying to open schools? Okay?
The one that's following those memos.
Herd immunity.
Read them
That's right.
That's
right.
He's gone.
Well, I don't know
totally
what Florida expected when they elected a guy who dressed his newborn baby in a Donald Trump onesie. A Make America Great onesie. Oh, please, this man is he's such a tool.
I know. And I'm scared for you and everybody in your family, my family now, because we live here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing we could do about this. I mean,
Right.
He has control of the state and he could do whatever he wants, I guess. I guess he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Who knows?
Right.
But, I'm afraid for everybody because when this is all said and done, who knows how many people he's going to kill, and murder with this,
Right.
attitude.
We all know it, and listen, Howard is immune deficient, right? And we worry about him all the time. And, all I do is I come here, I go home, I cook dinner, I sit in my backyard. I go nowhere. I mean, every once in a blue moon, I'll go to the garden center at Lowe's or Home Depot because it's outdoors, okay? And that'll be my fun because I'm a gardener. But other than that, I haven't been to a restaurant. I haven't been to a bar. Nothing.
Randi, what do you do for groceries? Like, how do you get your groceries?
I do go to the grocery store. I do.
And that's dangerous. That's where you can get it because a lot of these stores, they started off in the beginning when everything opened up and they said something about that you have to wear a mask to Walmart, that you can't be. And they only followed that for a few weeks, maybe a month. And then after that, it was.
Where are you? Where are you in Florida?
Fort Myers.
Okay.
Myers.
Well, see, here on the East Coast, I'll just say in my neighborhood, because that's all I'm familiar with, is my little neck of the woods. Everybody wears a mask. We go to Publix, and it's. I have not seen anybody not wearing a mask. Honestly, I'm very grateful. Our neighbors seem to do it. When I go to Publix, they do it. People are wearing masks around me, wherever I am. I will say that I work in a commerce park here. This is a part of a commerce park. And the what do you call it? The unit next to ours, or the one past ours, the one next door is my landlord, and then past that there's a call center, and they pack people in there. I mean, they must have 25 people, calling you. They make those spam calls that you hate. That's what they do, and it's run out of that cubicle, that unit over there. None of them wear masks ever.
And you know something, Randi? What upsets me is this man is going to do this herd immunity in Florida. Who knows how many people are going to die, and he's going to get away with it. He's not going to be prosecuted. Nothing's going to happen to this man.
See, and that's the problem. That is the problem. The problem is that nobody gets prosecuted for mass murder. Okay? They just don't. They don't get prosecuted for torture. They don't get prosecuted for human rights abuses. They don't get prosecuted for now murdering Americans. They don't get prosecuted for failing to protect and defend the United States of America from all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, so what is the point? What is the point? If we don't prosecute these people, we're going to end up with more people like this. And the next guy, God help us if he's competent. Right? See, Brett's like, that's it.
My mom actually has a little place near where that last caller is, and she said, well, we were thinking about coming down. And I said, don't you dare. Don't you dare. And then as far as what you just said, and that's exactly where the conversation went, I said, God help us if they get somebody savvy, competent, making sense, doesn't lie every second. We're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that is saving us is Trump's incompetence. And by saving us, I mean, saving some of us. Because some of us are dead. And some of us will die today. And some of us will die tomorrow. And some of us will die next week. And some of us will die before New Year's. And this is going to go on and on and on and on. And by the way, can we just reiterate, Pfizer was not part of Operation Warp Speed. BioNTech is a German company. And these vaccines have been in the making for 10 years. Coronaviruses are known. And they have been working on this platform called mRNA for 10 years. So he didn't do anything. Nothing. Jay in Michigan.
Hey, Randi. I always not always, I tend to agree with just about everything you say, but I got to push back a little bit. You've got to let go of this idea that these people have been tricked or that Republican senators are frightened of Trump. Neither is true. They are, the memo that you read today, it proves what I've known and what you've known ever since April. Back in April, when this COVID disease was identified as disproportionately affecting Black and brown people, the very next day, Trump and company and all those sycophants that surround him started pushing to reopen this economy, right? And that it was almost immediate. You could feel it. And what they're so stupid and brain dead that they don't realize that disproportionately affected does not mean the same thing as exclusively affected.
Yeah.
So these white people who go to the super spreader events in whatever state, whatever flyover state, they spread it. And then when they get sick, they don't understand. They're sick with the same thing that was affecting those Black people. But they say, but I'm not Black, so why is this affecting me?
You're right.
Their racism is killing them and destroying the country. This is not an accident. This is purposeful. It's a lot of stupidity, but it's quite purposeful.
No, I agree with you. That when I read that part of the email that doctor sent saying, let's lie to the CDC and not tell anybody that it's minorities. Yeah, you're right. It's racism.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
This morning, California's COVID crisis crippling the healthcare system. For the first time, the southern region of the state, home to 23 million people in cities like Los Angeles, now officially out of ICU beds.
All of these patients throughout this section of the ER have COVID, and they're seriously ill with COVID. They're not upstairs in the ICU because we've run out of space upstairs.
This is what it looks like inside overrun medical centers.
We are getting so many COVID patients that we have to take over a part of the emergency department to take care of them.
Outside, parking lots have become field hospitals, a grim but familiar sight. In LA County, 2 people are dying of COVID every hour. Hospitals now ordered to stop sending ambulances to other facilities. Across the nation, another day of record infections and deaths.
We know that the morgues are full. We know the coroner's full.
From Colorado to Missouri, funeral homes are overwhelmed. 3 times as many people are now dying each day in the U.S. compared to 3 months ago. Top health officials pleading with the public to stay home for the holidays.
Otherwise, what we will see as we go from December, the end of the month, New Year's, and into January, we may yet see again a surge upon a surge.
This is the Thanksgiving surge, and so we had a surge upon a surge. People refuse to not travel for Thanksgiving, and that is why you're looking at numbers like this. 1,520 people are dead today, just today. It's not even 24 hours since yesterday. Yesterday's numbers of almost 4,000 dead in a day. And like I say, it's 3 o'clock Eastern time, so we've got room to fit in. You know, bring out your dead, everybody. Welcome to the medieval times. If you ever wondered what it would look like if we had a sociopath as a president of the United States, now you know. If you ever wondered what it was like to have a president who infected people on purpose with, let's say, a disease called, the pressure of a disease, smallpox, in order to clear the land of the native indigenous people who lived there, then now you know. And speaking of that, this is historic. This is really the good news because we're starting to get ready to move on. Now, the only reason why we can't move on is because we have this special election in Georgia on January 5th, okay? And that will determine how successful the president-elect and the vice president-elect, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is how you could tell we're not One America News Network. First of all, we have more viewers. And second, we don't have to have a meeting to decide whether or not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the freaking election, okay? So that's how you know you're in a special place where truth and justice and freedom and the American way is being preserved, okay? That's the glory of Free Speech TV and Progressive Voices and wherever you're tuning in. That said, a historic event happened yesterday, and it's amazing. It's the first time in the history of this here country, okay? The first time that we will have an indigenous person, a Native American, in charge of the country's interior. Okay, well, it's the first time in 400 years, because this country actually is this country, has been this country for longer than you think, okay? So Deb Haaland, who is, by the way, she's a one-term member of Congress who broke all kinds of barriers to become that member of Congress, who ran on environmental concerns and change and renewable fuel, okay, from New Mexico. She was just reelected in this last election. But Deb Haaland is she likes to call herself a 35th generation, this is enormous, a 35th generation resident of this country, from New Mexico, but that's older than New Mexico. That's older than Mexico. You understand? You know what's going to be fun? Watching the birthers get completely lost on the Deb Haaland issue. I mean, what are they going to do? How are they going to, do birtherism against Deb Haaland? I mean, this is going to be fun to watch them. Let them try and attack her birthright citizenship. Let her. I mean, what are they going to do? Tell her to go back across the Bering Straits, where she came from? I mean, it's just so unbelievable. So, if you don't know who she is, meet her.
Native folks have been the most underrepresented group of people. Native women across the country have never seen themselves in Congress. Native American issues aren't a whole lot different from any Americans' issues. I ran on fighting climate change, moving to a renewable energy economy, making sure everyone has health care, quality public education. Those are the things that I'll fight for. From the time President Trump has taken office, it seems as though his racist attitudes have guided his policies across the board, and I'm disappointed. We didn't want people to feel like I was going to just represent Native Americans. So we thought, we'll just kind of play that part a little cool. But I mean, in the end, it was something that the voters really, they wanted that. Our win is a victory for working people, a victory for women, a victory for Indian country.
I don't think we're going to have an XL pipeline, do you? No. It's pretty amazing. So now you have a Native American who will be in charge of the Interior Department, or one-fifth of the land in the United States. That should be no problem. Her ancestors know how to manage 5/5 of this land. So this is a historic pick. It's just an amazing thing. Also, in the same breath, we got another history-making nominee for the EPA, for the Environmental Protection Agency. You can see, and I saw it when Biden picked Pete Buttigieg to head up the Transportation Department. People were like, transportation, and then followed that with Jennifer Granholm at where is Jennifer Granholm going? Anyway, I forget which who's going where, but you can see that energy. She's going to energy, so you could see that transportation and energy were thought of in the same thought, right? And I told you that it seemed to me that what was going on here was Buttigieg was going to be in charge of putting charging stations all over this country, while Jennifer Granholm at Energy was going to focus on more than just our nuclear arsenal. She was going to actually focus on, energy. She was going to focus on emission-free cars, electric cars, any kind of car that doesn't emit carbon. And you could see them working in tandem together on that. And now that we have somebody at the Environmental Protection Agency who actually believes in environmental protection, his name is Michael Reagan. He is the first black man to be nominated to head the Environmental Protection Agency. But that's not just the historical portion of his elevation. This is a man who forced a multi-billion-dollar settlement over cleanups of coal slush, coal waste, with Duke Energy, and he's been an environmental justice advocate his entire career. He literally comes from the Environmental Defense Fund as the Southeast Regional Director for the Environmental Defense Fund. So you can see Biden's getting very, very serious, not just about climate change, but the jobs, the millions of jobs that will come from transitioning to clean energy.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Hello, Earth lovers. You may have heard that climate is at the top of the Biden agenda, but what does that mean? Well, he really has two areas to tackle. One, unregulated pollution that is fouling our air and water, especially in communities of color, and the fossil fuel addiction, making weather more violently unpredictable. And that is the big kahuna. So Biden is letting the rest of the worried world know that America is back in the fight and ready to lead innovation on huge scales.
As of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord.
I will rejoin the Paris Accord.
Yay.
By rejoining the Paris Accord, analysts believe humanity has a fighting chance to slow the scary rise in Earth's temperature. Biden's $2 trillion plan is the most ambitious in American history, which is why many think it won't get done without some help from the Senate.
Hello.
We're going to lead the world on climate and save this planet.
But like President Trump, he does have the power of executive action. He could use an executive order to make good on a promise to rescind a permit to expand the Keystone XL pipeline. Biden called for a ban on new oil and gas permits on public lands so he could try to block drilling rigs in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and other federal land. And Biden also appointed John Kerry, former Secretary of State, who was there to negotiate the Paris Accords, as his climate czar. And this time, that role will be a cabinet-level position with a seat on the National Security Council. Oh! Huge.
Yes, it is. It's huge. It's huge. So that's Bill Weir giving a report prior to the nomination of Deb Haaland and prior to the nomination of Michael Reagan at EPA. So you can see these nominations now are starting to really form a policy agenda. You know, when you watch somebody fill in their cabinet, for me, it's, okay, this one, that one, da, 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 da. I'm waiting for the Attorney General, obviously, because I want the President of the United States prosecuted for murder. It's just me. Because he has presided over a mass casualty event, which we cannot look away from. But that ties into climate in this way. You know why minority communities have poorer outcomes with COVID, don't you? It's not just lack of access to medical care when they need testing, when they become sickened with COVID, when they are living in rural places where public hospitals have closed and there's a lack. No, it's also environmental. It's also because people of lesser means, tend to live in places where we, for generations, have dumped our trash, have dumped our pollution, have dumped our waste, our chemical waste, and all those other things, and spewed toxins into the air. Hence, you have higher rates of asthma, of lung disease, etc., poorer outcomes with learning. When you have lead in the water, it's kind of hard to concentrate on math and science. You see what I mean? And so these cabinet positions taken together, you know, to have Deb Haaland, who is a firm believer in the caretaking of the land, in charge of the land, the public land, is going to be a game changer. To have Michael Regan at the Environmental Protection Agency, a guy who, like I said, comes right out of the environmental movement, comes right out of the Environmental Defense Fund, which is an advocacy group. He knows how to make progress on environmental issues when it's not easy. Deb Haaland knows how to preserve the land, knows how to do land use because it's ingrained in her, okay? The same thing could be said for Jennifer Granholm, who was there during the automobile industry bailout. Not only does she understand the auto industry, she understands how to innovate in the auto industry, and she understands money. She understands large chunks of money, and she understands what to reward and what not to reward. And meanwhile, we've had this man, Trump, doing so much damage and then standing on a stage lying to the Americans. The water is crystal clear. Meanwhile, you know, we still have lead pipes, okay? And we still have, you know, these unbelievable man-made chemicals seeping into rivers and streams all across America. That's what Michael Regan has been working on for a really long time. Now, he has, look, he comes from North Carolina. He's a regulator in North Carolina. He literally runs the North Carolina environment. And one of the things that he was able to do besides hold Duke Energy responsible and make them clean up the coal waste that Duke Energy put into the environment. But he was also able to work with a chemical company called Chemours to virtually eliminate a group of man-made chemicals that were seeping into the Cape Fear River. Now, you would think people, you know, in the southern part of the United States, especially people in Louisiana who got hit by hurricane after hurricane after hurricane after hurricane this season, you know, would start to think, maybe we ought to really clean our act up, you know. Well, now they're going to have no choice. It's going to happen, and you can totally see it from these appointments for nominations, okay? Now, remember, we don't have the Senate yet. We don't have the Senate yet. And change of this magnitude is going to require the Senate. And that is why all eyes are on Georgia, who keeps filing lawsuits. Georgia keeps Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue, these people who, you know, they're there for their portfolios. They certainly are not there for you, Georgia. They are certainly not there for the United States as United States senators, okay? Nobody elected Kelly Loeffler in the first place, and David Perdue's a one-termer who showed you exactly what his priorities are, and it's his portfolio, right? So they're not interested. They will take any information they can get, and they will invest in whatever benefits them and continue to vote against anything that would move us into the 21st century while the rest of the world moves into the 21st century. That is a stupid place to be. A stupid place. The global marketplace is demanding clean energy. They are demanding solar panels and wind turbines. There is already a gigantic economy for clean, new energy. And if we don't do anything about it, because you got these sycophants that love to take money from Duke Energy, that love to take money from Chemours, that love to take money from fossil fuels producers and refiners, we're never going to get there. And I want to live in the 21st century. I do. And this is how we get there. The amount of jobs that this creates, I mean, it's not just a humanitarian effort here. This is an economic effort. A real economic effort to bring the United States into a marketplace that has trillions of dollars worth of demand in it. It's smart. It's really, really smart. I'm really excited about it, but we're never going to get there unless we get the Senate. Never. And I have to tell you, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, they're very busy filing lawsuits against drop boxes, which, by the way, were just thrown out of court this morning. I mean, they just want to keep disenfranchising Georgia voters. They keep wanting to tell Georgia voters that it's going to be awfully hard for you to cast a ballot. We're going to make it as hard as humanly possible because there are more people like us who want to move forward, who want to create millions of jobs, who want new industry, who don't want to have a Rust Belt, who don't want to see poverty and pollution in the Cape Fear River, and so they have to block us.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Georgia, I know things are tough right now, but I want you to know help is on the way. My administration is preparing to beat COVID-19 and get economic relief to the American people. On day one as your president, I'm prepared to sign a COVID relief package that fully funds the public health response needed, led by Georgia's own CDC. It will ensure free testing and vaccination for every American, and will get small businesses the assistance they need right now. Let me be clear. I need Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff in the United States Senate to get this done.
Yep.
There are folks in Congress threatening to do everything in their power to block our efforts. We need you to get out there and vote for Jon Ossoff as well as Raphael Warnock. We need them in the Senate. God bless America and may God protect our troops.
I'm Raphael Warnock.
And I'm Jon Ossoff.
And we approve this message.
Beautiful. It is so important if we're going to get any kind of relief in this country. Look at what's going on with divided government right now. You have the House in Democratic hands, the Senate in Republican hands, and Mitch McConnell is, an impediment to getting stimulus money out the door. He is insisting on liability protection for big businesses. He's tied that to state and local funds. They had to separate that out of the stimulus package to help the 8 million people who have been just literally pulled into, they didn't do anything, pulled into poverty, the hundreds of thousands of small businesses that are failing in this country, the 885,000 people who filed for unemployment benefits this week alone. This week alone. You remember during the Great Recession, 800,000 jobs a month every month. We're losing almost 1 million jobs a week every week. Every week. And people are just, I don't know, they're either numb to it or it hasn't hit them, or it has hit them and they've given up hope. But the impediment to getting money out the door, to doing the right thing, the impediment to funding the vaccines, the actual administration of them, the impediment to getting the vaccines to the states where they need to go, is all because this president is involved in a dereliction of duty, the likes of which this country has possibly never seen before, ever. I'm watching Mike Pence and Mother get vaccinated on live TV. The only joy I took in that was knowing that it works on people without any blood in their veins. That it works on bloodless people. Do you know what I mean? California is in a mass casualty plan. A mass casualty plan. You know what that is? That is when you have to start triaging people as to whether or not you could even take them into the hospital, okay? And that happens when there's no available space in ICUs. That's what, and they're down to 0. They have no beds in ICUs in California. And Trump is blaming it all on the fact that they haven't swept their forest floors or some crap like that. Meanwhile, I'm having to watch them get their protection, them get their, it's unbelievable that they're under the umbrella of safety, and we're out here trying to figure, this all has to stop. It has to end, and it has to end in a meaningful way, and that means we need the Senate. We have to have a unified effort on the part of the people in this country. And Loeffler and Perdue, they know they're in trouble. They do. They see that 900,000 people already voted in Georgia. 900,000, almost 1 million people have already voted in these 2 elections. That's the latest data from the state of Georgia. And 427,000 of those were cast by absentee. And that is why they decided to go to court to try and shut down, to try and impede, to try and suppress the votes of Georgians. They're not succeeding. The courts are throwing it out, saying This isn't the eve of the election. The court actually said these words. This isn't even the eve of the election where you want to change the rules. We're in the middle of the game. This is halftime already. You're a little late on the uptake on this, okay? And so they filed a case that they said that the local election officials, again, be prohibited from opening the ballot envelopes before Election Day. Now, why do they want that? They want that all the time so that on Election Day, the in-person ballots are tabulated first, as we all know. You have to close the door. As we all know, the in-person ballots are tabulated first, and then they have to hand count the paper ballots that come by mail, right? Those are paper ballots, and they have to open the envelopes first. They have to verify the signatures. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, FYI, everybody, the signatures are verified twice, 2 times. Once when you request the absentee ballot, and a second time when the envelope comes in. There are 2 verifications of your signature in Georgia. You don't even get sent an absentee ballot in Georgia unless your signature has been previously verified. Then, when you get your ballot and you cast your ballot by mail, when it comes in, you know you have to sign the envelope. Well, before they even open the envelope, they verify the signature and address. That is when the envelopes get set aside and the ballots are hand counted, right? Or put through a vote tabulation machine. Paper, paper, paper. Why do they separate the envelopes? How do we know? They separate the envelopes because in the United States of America, the ballot is secret. So they verify it before it's cast, when it's requested, and then they verify it once it's completed and you send it in. That's when they separate the envelope. Now, they want these ballots to remain sealed until Election Day because it takes more time to count them because they have to be removed from an envelope, separated, and put into a machine. And then on the back end, they allege fraud. 10 o'clock at night, everything changed. Everything changed. Yes, because it takes longer to process the paper ballot than it does to process an in-person on a machine, which creates a paper ballot but feeds it right into the tabulator. They're so scammy, it's unbelievable. So anyway, Loeffler and Perdue, they filed a lawsuit saying, okay, we don't want any drop boxes. And what was their reason? Could allow for massive fraud. Could allow. It has not happened. But they filed a lawsuit to stop the ballot drop boxes, and they filed a lawsuit saying the signature matching it's not good enough for us. It's not good that we check the signatures 2 times, one before you even get the ballot and one after you cast your ballot, you can send it in. And then they wanted to add another layer of signature verification, whatever. The court tossed it out. The court said, you know, what's wrong with you? We're in the middle of the game. This is exactly what the judge, his name was Randall Hall, a Bush appointee, okay? A W Bush appointee. He said, quote, we're not even on the eve of election. We are, as it relates to this particular election, closing in on halftime. And the plaintiff's claims of voter fraud are highly speculative. It hasn't happened. There's no merit to it. And he tossed it, and it's out. It's gone. That case, they're going to keep trying. They're filing and filing and filing, all to suppress the vote. Georgia, you have to be better than Loeffler and Perdue.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Yeah, there's still ongoing litigation in Arizona. There are a few other appeal options in Nevada and elsewhere. So the president's litigation is ongoing. Make no mistake. Also, in the 4 states that we saw a lot of problems in with those big metro areas, the only metro areas where Joe Biden beat Hillary Clinton, ironically, in those states, there has been an alternate slate of electors voted upon that Congress will decide in January. So we will see what happens.
They're not giving up. He will never concede. McEnany is in, to the bitter end. She's a dead ender, that one. It is unbelievable what is going on here. And by the way, I have to tell you, in the alternate universe of media, there are entire channels, as you know, that sit there and they propagate misinformation, disinformation, bad information, lunatic, fringy theories, and they present them with, in suits and ties, and they present them as if they're real, and none of it is real. None of it is real. Michael Flynn was on, I guess, Newsmax TV yesterday, saying that Donald Trump really ought to deploy the military into swing states. No, I'm not kidding. Deploy the military into swing states and rerun the election. This man was our national security advisor, a man who knowingly pled guilty to colluding with the Russians during the 2016 campaign, talking to them about sanctions that Barack Obama had put on them for hacking into the 2016 election. And now we have this massive hack of Russia. Russia is in the Commerce Department, the Treasury, they're in the nuclear, the Energy Department, and the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. They're all over our government. It's ongoing. It's a massive hack. And the man who was our national security advisor is on television telling people martial law.
He could order within the swing states, if he wanted to, he could take military capabilities and he could place them in those states and basically rerun an election in each of those states. I mean, it's not unprecedented. I mean, these people out there talking about martial law, it's like it's something that we've never done. Martial law has been instituted 64 times.
I mean, you actually have a national security advisor of the United States of America, a man who has that on his resume, okay? A man who has that on his resume in the face of a massive, massive ongoing Russian hack, the likes of which this country has never seen, is on television telling people that the election isn't over and that the president ought to use the military, suspend habeas corpus, suspend civil rights, and rerun the election. Now, why that isn't illegal in this country to incite violence in this manner, to advocate for a violent overthrow of the government by a national security advisor who has pled guilty to colluding with Russia in a meaningful way, I have no earthly idea how these organizations, survive, because somebody has got to, sue them for the incitement of violence. And we already, yesterday I played you a story in Houston where some rich guy, Hotze, funded a dirty ex-police chief in Houston, a guy who was fired from the police force in 2003 for erroneously rounding people up and arresting them for stuff they didn't even do, and was summarily fired. But he was paid $266,000+ to pretend that there was election fraud and that he was on the case and was going to find the 750,000 illegal ballots, and decided that it was in an AC repairman's truck, had a car accident on purpose with this AC repairman's truck. When he hit the truck, the AC repairman got out of the truck to try and help him. And then the ex-cop held a gun to this man's head, put him on the floor, and put a knee on his back, and held him on the ground. And the search of his truck produced AC air conditioning replacement parts and tools. I mean, these people are tools. There's something so wrong with them. And the idea that they are going down this rabbit hole with a deranged, lunatic, sociopathic president who is presiding over 1,825 people dead today at 3:52 Eastern time, probably going to hit 4,000 today. We have 163,000 new cases. You realize that almost 1 in 200 people in this country have been diagnosed with COVID? I mean, this is just so sick and sad. It is such a dereliction of duty. And you have these people with these titles, National Security Advisor, advocating for martial law to make this president again by any means necessary, including the overthrow of a democratic election and democracy itself. I'm sorry, I have an issue with that. The question is, why don't the maggots? Why don't they have a problem with what's going on here? And literally, the entire process is going to be challenged on January 6th, and we know that now. We freaking know that because you have an incoming dude, Tommy Tuberville. Okay, Tommy Tuberville. What was he? A coach?
Yeah, he was a college football coach. I believe it was Auburn. Without doing a lot of digging right now, I believe it was Auburn. Yeah, long time
college football coach.
Yeah, SEC coach.
So that qualifies you to just, be a United States Senator. I'm more qualified to be a United States Senator. At least I understand how government works. At least I get it. He thinks he will support the challenge to the slate of electors. He thinks that he will support, he doesn't even know which slate because he doesn't understand that each state is going to have a slate. But there are some states that are planning on sending 2 slates. And Mo Brooks from Alabama and a couple of other lunatics like Matt Gaetz, you watch on January 6th, okay? You watch. They are going to object to certain slates of electors, but they're going to need a senator to object with them in writing. And all that will happen after that is that the joint session of the House and the Senate, which is what it is when they certify the electors, will have to separate. They will have to go back to their own House and Senate chambers. They will have 2 hours of debate privately. Then they will have to vote on the Senate floor and on the House floor whether or not this challenge should succeed. And of course it won't. Of course it won't. But they're going to do it repeatedly. They're going to do it repeatedly. And you got this new guy, a college football coach who was endorsed by Donald Trump coming in to the U.S. Senate, for God's sake, who says, I think I'm going to challenge it. And you know why he said it? He did not know that he was talking to a media person. He thought he was talking to a maggot.
Folks, we got to grab a hold and hold on. We have no choice. Listen to me now. We have no choice but to win this election. They're going to try to steal it. They're going to try to buy it. They're going to do everything they can, lie, cheat, steal to win this election, like they did in the presidential election. It's impossible. It is impossible what happened. But we're going to get that all corrected. I'm going to tell you, don't give up on it. Come on.
Don't give up on President Trump.
Are you going to fight to make this election right?
Pardon?
Are you going to fight to make this election right?
We're going to fight hard.
What can y'all do on January 6th? Madison said y'all had tricks up your sleeve.
We're going to run to it at the airport. We got to just wait for it. Well, you see what's coming. You've been reading about it in the House. The Democrats are not going to. We're going to do it in the Senate.
Okay. You know what's coming. You've read about it in the House. We got to do it in the Senate.
You know, Randy, what's really upsetting about that is how influential a college football coach is on the lives of their players. And you got to think over the last 20 years, how many young minds did that guy influence?
Listen, he knows nothing. He's an empty-headed bobblehead. Okay, he really knows nothing about government. He knows nothing about governing. He knows nothing about the Constitution. He knows nothing about the Senate parliamentary rules. He doesn't understand the environment in which he's about to fail upward into. He really doesn't know. He really does not have a grip on any of this. But he's saying, don't give up on Trump. We got to grab a hold and hold on. We have no choice. Listen to me now. Listen to me now. We have no choice but to win this election. They're going to try and steal it. They're going to try and buy it. They're going to try and do everything they can. Lie, cheat, steal to win this election like they did in the presidential election. This is what he's telling crowds in Georgia. And then quietly on the back end, where they're not being confronted with microphones, they're bringing lawsuits to suppress the vote, lawsuits to keep people from accessing the ballot box, from literally removing the ballot boxes. That's what they're asking the courts to do. Now the courts are saying, get the hell out of here, okay? This is ridiculous. It's halftime, not the beginning of the election. It's not even the eve of the election, before the election. We're in the middle of the election. Go away. But that's not going to stop them. Yesterday, Kelly Loeffler was asked whether or not Biden won. Oh, my God.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Senator, do you plan to join with members of the House to object to Joe Biden's electors on January 6th?
Well, look, January 6th is a long ways off right now. We've got a Senate race to run here in Georgia. We've got to win. The future of the country is on the ballot.
Was it accurate to say you haven't decided on that one yet?
Look, I haven't looked at it. January 6th is a long way off. There's a lot to play out between now and then.
Senator McConnell has called to congratulate President-elect Biden. Is that something you've done? Do you plan to do that in the future?
Look, I'm focused on winning this race on January 5th. I talked to Leader McConnell this morning. We're focused very much on delivering relief.
Have you acknowledged that Biden is going to be the president?
Look, the president has a right to every legal recourse. That's what's playing out right now.
But have you acknowledged that Biden is going to be president?
Look, my focus is on winning this race right now.
It's unbelievable.
Have you ever acknowledged that Biden will be going to be president?
Look, there'll be a time for that if that becomes true, but the president has a right to every legal recourse.
Do you feel concerned at all if you don't acknowledge that Biden is going to be the president-elect, that you might lose some voters in the runoff?
Look, my focus right now is my race. It has to be, because the American dream is on the ballot.
But are you worried specifically if that stance by not acknowledging him might backfire as you are campaigning to be elected?
What I'm worried about is that we have free and fair elections that are trusted here in Georgia.
Senator McConnell has acknowledged President-elect Biden as a president-elect, and do you face a risk by not following his example? And you said you had a conversation with him this morning. Was that a topic of conversation at all?
Look, I'm the voice for Georgians, and Georgians want to know that they have free and fair elections. That's what I'm fighting for.
She's the voice of Georgians, everybody. I'm focused on my race to make sure the American dream is on the ballot. It's a long way away to January 5th. The American dream is on the ballot. My opponent, liberal, black, Raphael Warnock, January 5th, listen, here's the thing. I firmly believe that Georgians who would vote for her don't know who she is. They're just going to show up and see an R on the ballot, and they're going to vote for it because that is who they think they are. Now, the Georgians that will show up to vote for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, they know that Raphael Warnock is a real reverend. He's a real Christian, and they will be voting that way. And the people who are voting for Jon Ossoff also know that David Perdue is an inside trader. Okay? It's so interesting how an informed voter is going to vote for Ossoff and Warnock, and the people that are going to vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue have no idea what their records are or what they've done or what they look like. It's very creepy. There's so much weird. They asked her 9 times. 9 times, will you acknowledge that Joe Biden is the president-elect? And she just stays on those damn talking points, man. Didn't you used to accuse Democrats of talking and talking points? We don't, but Republicans do. I'm focused on my race. January 6th is a long way off. My opponent, liberal Raphael Warnock, radical liberal. What the hell is wrong with this woman?
She reminded me of one of those animatronic robots at Chuck E. Cheese's that would play the guitar. And
yeah, not even a Disney level animatron. You know, a Chuck E. Cheese, which, by the way, went bankrupt. COVID, COVID. Unbelievable. And listen, she's not the only weirdo out there. Ever wonder what happened to Michelle Bachmann? Michelle Bachmann, anybody? Minnesota, Michelle Bachmann? Oh, man, check this out.
So could you have a more perfectly framed scenario for fraud?
So in this kind of scenario, it is entirely possible that you could have ballots already filled out. In fact, they could be printed in China. They could be routed through various countries so you can't detect them, make their way into Minnesota, be in a barn somewhere until after the election day is over, you count up the ballots and you say, gee, how many more do we need? Oh, we're short 48,000? No problem. You go out, you haul the ballots in.
But Michelle, then the poll books would not be in agreement with the number of ballots that you have. Moron. Oh, geez. My God. So now that was pre-election, okay? Post-election. Check this out.
I was doing election night coverage with David Barton. And that night we knew immediately that this was fraud. And from that night on, I've never been a victim of like abuse, like a wife abuse, domestic abuse. I've never been a victim of it. But I felt that night like somebody took a swing at me and that they were continuing to take a swing at me. And every day when I woke up, I had this feeling that I was wounded. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I have felt wounded since election night. And not to the point of being discouraged, but to the point of being abused. And I sense that that was Satan who came to kill, steal, and destroy, but that he was physically throwing punches and wounding and abusing.
Drop some acid, honey. Get your mind, in order. Something. I don't know. F your feelings. Really, I couldn't care less. Isn't that what they said to us? F our feelings, right? This is just so bizarre. But it gets even worse, everybody. It gets even worse. This was circulating last night. And, this is the thing. When you live in a world of newspapers, when you live in a world of political magazines, or you live in a world of watching the news regularly, local, national, network, NPR, us, cable. When you live in a world where information is the coin of the realm and you are curious enough to figure out what's true and what's not, you know how full of crap these right-wing weirdo networks, I don't even want to call them networks, these right-wing weirdo outlets are. I mean, you understand how bizarre they are and that this is a complete alternative universe. But if you don't, this sounds really devastating. I'm going to play this little video. This was circulating last night on right-wing media. I mean, this generated hundreds of thousands of comments. Hundreds of thousands of comments from right-wing lunatics that want to now hurt, remove, impeach, or otherwise do something, I don't even want to say it, to Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. Now, this man who is talking looks like a state senator or looks like a House member, and he's talking in Texas, okay? His name, he's just a guy. He's just a guy. His name's Matt Patrick. He's nobody. And this video is him on the day that the electors in Texas cast their ballots, all right? What you need to know is that this story that he's about to tell you comes from a far-right, racist felon. Seriously, this man's been convicted and served major jail time for threatening the lives of politicians. His name's Hal Turner, and he's got, I hate to even say his name, he's got a website, and he literally put this story up on his page, and it got repeated in the Texas legislature by this nobody named Matt Patrick, and people were using it last night as if it were a statement by a senator or a statement by a House member, and that it was true.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
This is what right-wing wackadoodles pass around between themselves. This is what they watch.
It was written by someone who's a current staffer for one of the Supreme Court justices. And this, I'll just describe the report to you that I read, and you can make of it what you will. He said that the justices, as they always do, went into a closed room to discuss, cases they're taking or do debate. There's no phones, no computers, no nothing. No one else is in the room except for the 9 justices. It's typically very civil. They usually don't hear any sound. They just debate what they're doing. But when the Texas case was brought up, he said he heard screaming through the walls as Justice Roberts and the other liberal justices were insisting that this case not be taken up. And the reason, the words that were heard through the wall when Justice Thomas and Justice Alito were citing Bush versus Gore from John Roberts were, I don't give up about that case. I don't want to hear about it. At that time, we didn't have riots. So what he was saying was that he was afraid of what would happen if they did the right thing. And I'm sorry, but that is moral cowardice. And we in the SREC, I'm an SREC member, we put those words in very specifically because the charge of the Supreme Court is to ultimately be our final arbitrator, our final line of defense for right and wrong. And they did not do their duty. So I think we should leave these words in because I want to send a strong message to them. Thank you.
F you. This man's name is Matt Patrick, and what he is saying he read is something he read on a right-wing, lunatic fringe, ex-felon, or actually still a felon, right? A website. I don't even want to say the guy's name, okay? And it supposedly came from somebody deep inside the Supreme Court. It was supposedly a clerk for one of the justices on the Supreme Court. Well, instantly you know that this is a fake story, a false story, because the Supreme Court does not meet in a closed and sealed room because of COVID. They've been meeting remotely all through November and December. Everything happens by telephone conference, number one, and they put out a notice back in November that said the court will hear oral arguments scheduled for the November-December sessions by telephone conference. In keeping with public health guidance in response to COVID-19, the justices and counsel will participate remotely. The oral arguments are scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. On days when more than one case will be heard, there will be 3-minute pause before the second case begins. They are not meeting in a closed room. That's number one. Number two, the story that he says at the beginning, make of it what you will, is easily Googled and found, and it's found on this lunatic fringe right-wing website. And Idiot Boy brings that into the Texas legislature and cites it as if it really came from a Supreme Court clerk, when it really came from a felon. And then the right wing takes it and runs with it, and they start posting, and they get all worked up into, we have to take out Justice Roberts. Oh, it's really amazing what this president is doing, and his sycophants and his people. I mean, it's just, it is so unbelievable. Meanwhile, the real threat is twofold. The Russians are taking everything, all the information that they can get right now. They are taking it. They are inhabiting all kinds of agencies right now, putting our national security at risk, and COVID is rampant. Rampant. And the President of the United States refuses to do his job. Why does he want to be president? He doesn't want to be president. He doesn't want to do the job. He just wants the awesome perks of the job. And the one big perk that he wants is immunity from law. immunity from federal law. Now, okay, if he's talking about pardoning his family now, he's talking about self-pardoning, that will only protect him from federal lawsuits or from federal, prosecution. It will not protect him from state prosecution. It will not. But man, oh man, in the middle of a freaking pandemic, that we are doing worse than any other country on this here planet, because we don't have any strategy, none, for this virus. In fact, yesterday, the really sick story, the really, really frightening story, was that Pfizer had put out a statement, and this is it. I'll do a Kayleigh McEnany and I'll hold it up, but you can see it's on Pfizer stationery. That's my pink mark that says Pfizer statement, just so I could find it. But this was put out yesterday afternoon, and it says, this was in response to the president and the warp speed people alleging that Pfizer was having production issues with the COVID vaccine. Pfizer wasn't delivering. They had contracted, to buy X amount of doses, and Pfizer wasn't delivering, and Pfizer was, delaying, and Pfizer didn't know what it was doing. So Pfizer had to put out a statement in response to the freaking president of the United States. Quote, Pfizer is not having any production issues with our COVID-19 vaccine, and no shipments containing the vaccine are on hold or are delayed. This week, we successfully shipped all 2.9 million doses that were asked to ship by the U.S. government to the location specified by them. We have millions more doses sitting in our warehouse, but as of now, we've not received any shipment instructions. They won't even tell Pfizer where to dump the vaccines. And I told you at the beginning that the president of the United States was drop shipping these things. He was just going to send them to states, let states figure it out, right? Don't give the states the money that they need to administer these vaccines. Oh no, oh hell no. Let's just drop ship them, dump them, and walk away. Well, now they aren't even telling Pfizer where to ship the vaccines so the states can have them. This is really sick. They go on, they say, Pfizer has a long and successful track record of producing and distributing large volumes of complex vaccines that the world can trust. And we are continuing this track record with our COVID-19 vaccine. I can't even believe that we're stuck in a position where a giant pharmaceutical company has to be defended on this here show against the president of the United States, who is refusing to provide instructions with Operation Warp Speed where to ship the damn vaccines, while 3,000 to 4,000 people are dying in every 24-hour period in this country.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. So we're less than a week in to the distribution, and the vaccination effort is already struggling. 6 states say they aren't getting what the White House promised. Nobody seems to have a good answer why these 6, Rhode Island, Iowa, Illinois, Washington, Michigan, and Oregon, only one of which was even scheduled to get enough for those first in line by the end of the year. Why are they being shorted? Why now? We're not talking a handful of doses here either. Next week's shipments are going to be cut between 30 and 50%.
Wow.
Blame Pfizer. Okay. They say no. Blame Trump. Here's their quote. We have millions more doses sitting in our warehouse, but as of now, we haven't received any shipment instructions for additional doses. The Trump administration, doing what it does best, nothing.
It's a bit of a misunderstanding or a miscommunication there. Things are going as planned.
Oh. This is your plan to screw it up? Huh. Tell that to the governors who are worried, to the first line recipients who are worried. Even the spokesperson for HHS couldn't stomach calling this according to plan.
They just said it was delayed. And it raises the question, what is the plan? Who gets what and when? Why won't the White House or the CDC or General Perna, why won't somebody give us the numbers and details instead of general assurances?
Seriously, this is bizarre. It ties right back into the death cult idea that they have been promoting ever since COVID became a novel virus that was in the United States. They just thought, let them die. They just thought it's only going to affect black people, brown people, and really old people, so screw it. We need them infected. Let's use the young. Let's use the people without comorbidities. Let's use them to create herd immunity. And the idiot doctor that wrote that misspelled herd. H-E-A-R-D, he wrote. Herd, as if I heard something, not H-E-R-D, as in sheeple. So Chris Cuomo called and asked, what is the deal?
So I now call people who I know very high up involved with OW, Operation Warp Speed. They couldn't tell me who makes the decisions of who gets what in what state. I said, is it the state? No, it's not the state. Is it Perna? Well, he's more the logistics. He decides how it gets there, but he's somebody. Who? Is it the White House? They don't know.
They don't know.
What does that tell you? So you get the lack of leadership. Then you got the real problem, which is time. It's just delayed. What does time mean? More time, more disease, more death, period.
Yes, more death. They love death. These are the death cult people, okay? They love death. Bill Barr especially loves death. Bill Barr has executed 10 people, and he's continuing on a conveyor belt of death, killing people through the death penalty that we haven't used in years and years and never use during a lame duck presidency, ever. They love death. These people literally love death. They like to blame things on dead people. They like to make dead people. They like to create dead, either injecting them with, sodium pentothal or bleach or UV lights or COVID. I mean, these people worship death. They are so anxious to thin our herd. They just are derelict in their duty. But the idea that they are the pro-life party, oh my God, help us if that's what pro-life means. If that's what it looks like, God help us. How sick is this? All right, so Governor Gretchen Whitmer just gave a speech this afternoon because she is literally beside herself when you consider that the vaccine is being made in Michigan and she's being shorted on the vaccines as it's being made in her state.
I still cannot get a straight answer out of the Trump administration about why Michigan, like many other states, is receiving a fraction of the vaccines that we are slated to receive. There are millions of Pfizer vaccines, many right here in Portage, Michigan, that are waiting to be shipped. And there is either corruption or ineptitude that is keeping us from saving lives and protecting people.
And the same thing happened with PPE. Remember, she ordered PPE and somebody stole it from her? Remember that? U.S. Marshals intercepted her PPE shipments. This administration just literally loves to watch Americans he loves it. He loves to watch Americans die. Bill Barr likes it too. I guess it makes them feel strong or something to take life. Rick in Los Angeles.
Hey, Randy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Got such a wealth of topics. I mean,
because it's crazy right now. It's off the charts.
It's totally off the hook. I mean,
you got lying.
Republicans
you got
are the party
voter
of life.
suppression. You've got
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. they're the party of life. I mean, the way they've mishandled this COVID response and what have you.
God help us if this is the party that values life more than the other. Okay, then we're all dead.
Yeah.
We're all dead men walking. Is what it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, fortunately, we're going to have some sanity back in the White House, regardless of what the Republicans' fantasies are about objecting to the electors on January 6th. Yeah. What prompted my call was the Russian hack. The infrastructure, the computer infrastructure. I mean, that's extremely concerning, and there's no deterrent. There's no consequence that has been imposed on the Russians for their behavior.
He won't even talk about it. He won't even talk about it.
Yeah, won't even talk about it. I'm not sure what Moscow Mitch has said about that. Probably nothing.
Nothing.
So
all I can think of is yesterday Donald Trump said that he was going to veto the defense authorization. Okay, he was going to veto all the. Okay, so the cybersecurity money is in there. Now you look at him making all these different moves over at the Pentagon and removing the guy in charge of CISA, right?
Krebs?
Yes, Chris Krebs, dude. So there's nobody there watching the store, and he hears that Vladimir Putin has just perpetrated a huge hack on America, and I just get the feeling that Donald Trump is thinking to himself, great, that's 10 more floors on Trump Tower Moscow because he really owes me now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's scary.
If this happened under Kennedy's watch or under Clinton's watch or even under Nixon's watch, they would probably tell Moscow, okay, guys, cut it out. What we're going to do, if you keep this up, or actually what we're going to do in response is we're going to shut off the entire heating supply of Moscow for one day.
Right.
And we'll see how you like that.
Right.
I mean, you got to play hardball with these evil actors,
Yes. But he won't even talk about it. He won't even talk. And, we were all worried that he would tell Putin our secrets. Well, I guess Putin realized he's an imbecile. He doesn't know anything, so I'll hack.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Oh, everybody, today is the last day of the Free Speech TV Winter Pledge Drive. Last day. And we did really well this week, I think. We have about 15 G's to go. 15 grand. That's, and you know what the goal was this week. It was huge. But we made such a huge dent in it that all that's left is 15 G's. So if you are in a position to give and support media that does not take any money from political parties, that does not take any money from corporate advertisers, that is a not-for-profit organization that dedicates itself to truth in broadcasting, truth in media, then please do dial the number that is on your screen, 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. We have 16 people that live and dwell and work and toil in Denver, Colorado to make sure that the programs that you watch get to their destinations, that they get to Dish Network 9415, that they get to DirecTV channel 348, that they get on the internets, that there's somebody there to help you, take your calls, do customer service whenever you have questions and what we do as show hosts is we give Free Speech TV our shows. That's how we donate. That's how we contribute to this effort, and that's how this network survives. And it's been a winner for 25 years because of people like you. Now, if I make this 15 grand, right, if I can meet that goal, then Jeffrey in California will add $10,000 to that total so that the 16 people that work every single day in Denver can get paid. That's what these pledge drives are all about, to help us pay the rent, to help us pay the salaries, to help us pay for the distribution, the equipment, the lights, the studios, everything that Free Speech TV offers to us hosts. So there you have it. That is the business model for Free Speech TV. And if you can please dial 877-378-8669. We have gifts for, different levels of contributions that you make. For example, on the high end, $150, I will sign a Randi Rhodes Air Force hat for you. And then on the low end, there's things for $20, bumper stickers, Fight for Democracy stickers, things like that, webcam covers. There's all kinds of things that we will send you as a thank you for your support. If you're just online and you want to do it online and you don't want to pick up a phone, I get that. freespeech.org, not TV, freespeech.org. And you can donate that way. Thank you very, very much. This is the last day. We won't be bothering you for a while. So appreciate all that you did this week. Thank you so much. Oh, Julia. Julia? Okay. Rich in Denver.
Hey, Randi. Good afternoon. You are a national treasure. Happy Friday to you.
Thank you.
I was telling Brett, these people, too, as far as the stimulus, Randi, you've said it before. What we have to do, make their commodities, basically so we don't use them. Oil and gas.
Oh, well, what I said about all the oil wars that we had and have had over the years, I said the name of the game to stop these oil wars is to make what they have worthless.
Obsolete.
Right.
Right. Exactly. And I was telling Brett, you could solve, Randi, the opioid crisis in places like West Virginia if you built. I'm in Denver. We have here in Colorado. We have Bastids, a wind turbine company. Their American headquarters. They're out of Denmark. Are based here. They have 3 plants building wind turbines and nanocells here in Colorado. You could put things like that, and solar panel companies in West Virginia and places where they're being ravaged by not only COVID but the opioid crisis.
Yep.
And you'd solve the problem overnight. And these people like the Koch brothers and all these people, if you presented it to them, said, you guys could make even more money if you could get your head out of your backsides and get off this clean coal BS and oil and gas and get into alternative energy, which is where the world's going. And like you said, if we don't do it, the Chinese will.
They're already doing it. They're already doing it. The Chinese are going to have all-electric cars in about 5 years. The global demand for green energy, for batteries that are bigger, better, for windows that are hermetically sealed, for doors, what they call building fenestration. The global marketplace is there. There's a multi tens of trillions with a T dollars worth of a marketplace. And if we don't make the product, then they will get it from somewhere else and we will be left behind.
Yeah,
you're right. It will create jobs. I keep on saying, when I hear myself, okay, I'll just criticize myself. When I hear myself say things like the Rust Belt, it makes me gag that I'm saying it, because that is an accepted description of the heartland, okay? It's an accepted description of Michigan and Ohio, North and South, of Kentucky, of West Virginia. Screw that idea. Get rid of it. There should not be a Rust Belt in America in the 21st century. There should be thriving industries making windows and doors and roofing and wind turbines and solar panels. All of it. All of it. And I mean, these men would love these jobs. These women would love to be the bosses of these men. These would be fabulous union jobs with benefits. Oh my God, the amount of problems it solves to be part of a multi-trillion-dollar marketplace that's already established. I mean, how stupid do you have to be?
Yeah, like I said, we've got the Vestas out here, and it gives thousands of jobs, and they have 3 plants around the state, and they've been doing. I get my energy from a company called Arcadia, and it's out of your old neck of the woods. They're based out of New York, Randi, and it's all my energy goes through my utility company. They match it. They're a wind turbine company. I get my electrical and all my power to my home all matched 100% clean wind energy.
Right, you have a president of the United States that literally tells people dead birds, cancer, Okay?
Yeah.
Because he is in the pocket of whoever is paying him to say that. He is just like the Purdue's and the Loefflers of the world. They're only there to enrich themselves. They're self-dealing. That's it.
Insider traders.
All of them. All of them. And they're selling out the forgotten man that they claim to advocate for. They're selling out West Virginia and Kentucky and Michigan and Ohio. They're selling them down the river while the rest of the states innovate and start making the products that the world is demanding, that the world has a marketplace for. I mean, you'd have to be an idiot not to service a marketplace that's already created. Creating a marketplace is a hard thing to do, I know, because I had to figure one out. But when there's already a demand, to not participate is to cut your nose off.
To spite your face.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's why I'm so encouraged by these. This is why I started with the cabinet selection, because it tells you everything about the attempt to get into the 21st century by Joe Biden. Believe it or not, a 77-year-old man gets it. He gets that he needs to leave a legacy, and he wants to leave a legacy that is as bright and as hopeful and uplifting and possible as FDR's. I believe that. I really do. I really think that just by looking at who he's picking and where he's putting these people, the idea that the energy and transportation and EPA and Interior are all very progressive people who ran on and work on environmental progress and innovating out of fossil fuels, tells me if we give him a Senate, okay, this may seem like that's all we talk about, because it is the future. It is determinative of how far we can go in job creation. Like I said, there's a humanitarian issue there too about pollution in brown and black neighborhoods, and people who live in brown and black neighborhoods know that's true. But there's an economic argument that is astronomically hopeful, but we can't do it without a Senate, because these old line douches, these Mitch McConnells and Rand Paul, they're interested in hobbling government to keep the gravy train rolling from fossil fuels, from the Koch brothers, from the industries that pollute, from clean coal, Duke Energy. Let me tell you something, that ain't the future. We're almost to 2021. We're almost freaking there. Give this man a Senate, Georgia. Give America a chance. Let them, I mean, they're haggling over this stimulus package. They may even let the government go broke over the weekend because they can't agree. Screw divided government. Unify. Get it done.